No way.
Knowledge has the power to reveal paths previously unseen. At KMTV, we deep dive into the world of knowledge management, exploring how dedicated professionals reshape our understanding and drive meaningful change. Today, I'm really honored to have an African expert on our show, Benjamin Abugri. Benjamin, this month just marked your 8 years as a knowledge management officer with the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. You are also a mentor, author, and an all around project manager. Please share your journey with us, starting with how you became interested in knowledge management.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and it's a great pleasure to be on KMTV. Just to congratulate you for the good work that you do for the globe and especially on knowledge management. I have followed you especially since you interviewed Paul. Was how I've now paid attention to a lot of the things you do, and I am really very pleased with the things that you do. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Paul was fantastic.
All right. So, as you rightly mentioned, my name is Benjamin Abugri. I am the lead specialist for knowledge management, learning and digitalization and learning at the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa. I have been in knowledge management for quite some time, about 12 years now, consistently. But I think my passion for knowledge management actually was discovered by World Vision International. I have a background in strategic and project management. I have also an undergrad degree in accounting and business management. And then monitoring evaluation part of it. So, but I started my work, my major work with the Anglican Relief Services from 2007 to 2008. At that time in Ghana, when you complete the university, you are required to serve the country for 1 year. We call it the National Service Scheme. So I had to do that, and I spent time with the Anglican Relief Services. And then after that, I was recruited by World Vision International as a child sponsorship officer. Now, if you are familiar with World Vision, you would realize that being a child sponsorship officer comes with a lot of passion and skills that you have to bring to bear. I was managing 3,000 children in sponsorship, supported by World Vision South Korea, and my area development program was in the northern part of Ghana, a place called Garu Tempani at the time. So I worked there, and working as a sponsorship officer, apart from being creative in the field, you were required to write impact stories of how the sponsorship scheme is transforming the lives of the kids. And within the 2-3 years, even though where I was working was the farthest to Accra, where the national office is located, but I think my stories were louder. And so at some point, my story was selected as the best by the World Vision South Korea. And so when the Global Center requested that Ghana should be the first country in West Africa to implement a full knowledge management portfolio at the national office, I think they first advertised publicly. At the time, it was difficult to find somebody who even understands knowledge management and then they did not find anyone, so they decided to headhunt people that are exhibiting skills that looks like knowledge management. so that is how I was nominated. I was shortlisted to compete for the portfolio. I think we were about 5 or 6 at the time. Then finally, we were interviewed at Ghana level. We were interviewed by World Vision West Africa, and then finally they recommended that I be picked as a knowledge management. So in January 2013, I started my journey as the knowledge management and new initiatives coordinator for World Vision Ghana. And so since then, I worked with World Vision as KM for 2 years, developing their strategy And that is where I searched for people that were doing knowledge management. I discovered Nancy White, I discovered Sarah Cummins, I discovered all the people that were already doing knowledge management. And I started writing them emails. I've been asked to implement this. I have no idea what it is. And in no time, within 3 months, I was already settling and had a very broad picture of knowledge management. And then I used that to develop the knowledge management strategy and the implementation plan for World Vision. I don't want to forget the fact that World Vision at the time also had a global center unit for knowledge management, and we had a very strong team there that supported us. And so they had somebody come from the global center to Ghana, because we were the experimenting office for West Africa. So the way if I'm able to get things right, I was supposed to be used to help the other African countries to also set up knowledge management. And so that is how people like Rosemary Kihiu, who moved to Ghana to help me to understand SharePoint and then other things. Then I became conversant. So then in no time, I got recognized for innovation and good knowledge management practices by the World Vision West Africa. So I was awarded in 2014 for that. Subsequently, I joined USAID, where I worked as a knowledge management manager for nutrition projects, for health projects, and I spent close to almost 4 years with World Vision, with USAID Ghana health projects. And then in 2017, somewhere February, I joined FARA. And FARA now opened me up because now I had to think continent, not just country. I needed to think continent. And so I started, but by then I was now very experienced. I knew what knowledge management was about. I knew what I needed to do to push things. And so if you have those skills and you have those passions, and you are fortunate to meet bosses that were also ready to help you to stamp on the things or to be able to implement the things, it really worked for me. And I always give credit to my immediate supervisor, Dr. Irene Anofrimpong. She's now retired, but she's not tired, because the EU still uses her a lot, and she still supports FARA with some projects. So that is how things became. And then we started implementing initiatives, getting knowledge hubs, looking at how to build the continent capacity. And we started looking for how to get even experts to support us in all that. And so that is how we started building knowledge management in FARA. And as of today, with the support of very partners, including the Knowledge for Development Partnership, especially Professor Andreas Brander, even Sarah Cummins, we built a very strong bond between Africa and Europe in terms of knowledge management, and that has really helped us a lot within this period. So this has been my journey. And then December last year, I got awarded as the winner for the 2024 International Knowledge Management Award. And so I'm still here at FARA and working and trying my best.
Oh, congratulations on the awards and on this amazing journey. You had a post this week, if I'm correct, about the achievements of FARA in the last 8 years. What are the things that you are the most proud of?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I think every year I try to reflect on my journey. And so for 8 years, I think I just did a deeper reflection. I tried to fish out what have been the things that I am so passionate about. And I came up with the six areas that I wrote in my article, outlining the most significant contribution that we've made to the continent. We knowledge management is a new area, and so largely in Africa, in projects, it's always very difficult to get management to even appreciate the things that you do. But I think at FARA, I have pushed, and my bosses have also been very helpful in helping us to build the continent. So FARA is the apex, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa is the apex technical institution for the African Union. We are responsible for coordinating and advocating for agricultural research in Africa. So we are a knowledge institution, and we needed to stamp that authority so that our many stakeholders can work very closely with us, can make good use of us, because we are like a public good. FARA is like a public good. We were established by the countries who came together and said, no, we need a continental body institution that will help us to all be at one level or at par in terms of knowledge exchange, co-creation, networking, collaboration. And so, and in areas like capacity, policy, innovation. So it became very important that we are able to establish things that trickle down to everybody. So building the knowledge hub, where we have the knowledge hub called the FARA Data Informs. It's called the Observatory for African Agriculture. It was built within the context of what we call the Science Agenda for Africa, for Agriculture in Africa. It's called S3A. And so we've continued to build on it. It has basic information that supports stakeholders from everywhere to at least find something about Africa in a way. Like in Data Informs, when you go inside, you'll be able to connect to almost all the agriculture institutions that you have in the world. Sorry, in Africa. Like the National Research Institutes, the Ministries of Agriculture, digital agriculture institutions. So at least we try to provide basic information. We link up to platforms that are working very well, just connecting them so that people can at least know that things are happening. So that, for me, even though we spend time to do it, but it's working, and we continue to improve upon it. Now, besides all the other things, developing knowledge products in different forms, working with technical leads, to get them, working with countries to get knowledge products going. The key thing that has really broken, like my former boss would say, that broken the camel's back, is when we introduced the Knowledge Management for Agriculture Development Challenge, where we collaborated with the Knowledge for Development Partnership, with Professor Andreis and the network. We were able to bring on board almost all the knowledge management aspects. I think we missed you. I'm sure now we know you. So
I don't know how you did that.
Yes, so we got almost all them, Professor Dalkiel, Professor Chu, Professor Ribery, all those guys, at least to bring their experience to Africa. And we did that through the Knowledge for Development Partnership. And we have, since 2000, we developed what we call the knowledge management, the Continental Data Capture Strategy in 2020, published in 2021, used 2021 to have the first cohort of the Knowledge Management for Agriculture Development Agenda. It is all about educational, transformational, and the spirit of co-creation, where we don't need to know how to know what to do or how to do it. We just need to know that if co-creation, when you bring people together, whatever you want to achieve, you can easily achieve it. So 2021, we brought 22 people. Paul Achu, who you interviewed earlier, was one of the first batch. And so we identified key challenges in the African sector in Africa. And then we developed a number of things that have transformed the continent up to this point. We identified 10 thematic areas that are meant to advance agriculture development in Africa. We call it the Knowledge Management for Agriculture Development Framework, where we identified 10 areas that we develop policy briefs, or we develop briefs describing how institutions can implement those things. For instance, if you want to implement a knowledge hub, what is needed? If you want to have a knowledge partnership or knowledge agenda, what is needed? So those things, we developed it. Then we in 2022, it's that because the 2021 was very successful, we started getting partners. We started working with the CG centers through ILRI. And if you know the ILRI is the International Livestock Research Institute. They are within the CG. They are those driving knowledge management. And if you remember, people like Peter Ballantyne,
Yeah.
they have done a lot of work. So we started engaging them. Michael Victor, who is the KM manager. Then we started having collaboration. And if I say we, FARA was supported by an European Commission project that we had called the CADEP SP4. That's the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program X Pillar 4 initiative. This is made up of FARA and the sub-regional organizations. There are about 3 of them, CADESA for Southern Africa region, CORA for Western and part of Central Africa, and ASARECA for the Eastern and part of Central Africa. And then we also had AFAS, who are the extension institution. Then we had the CG centers. At some point we had GIFA. And then we started growing. People started, bringing their KM officers to join the training, because it's a 3-month program, intensive. And by the time you complete that program, you would have developed your institutional knowledge management strategy for them, or you would have revised it because of the knowledge you have. And then you would have worked with teams to create some knowledge product that is very useful. And so we had that 2021, 2022, 2023, and we just had a recent one, 2024. So at the moment, we have close to about 77 certified knowledge managers, largely from the National Research Institutes and a few from the organizations that are associated with agriculture, including the Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, YPAD, who are our youth wing that we work closely with. So this has been, it's been very refreshing, and that is why I decided to recount some of those things.
I love your passion and how you are talking about these topics. And I want to understand, because I've never been in Africa, all this work, how does it translate practically to the lives of people, tribes? How does it translate?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So for us, and knowledge management, the 3 components of knowledge management, which lately, people have added one more, but the 3 components where we talk about people, processes, and technology are things that we've always want to make sure that they all go hand in hand. And so it's for us, it has always been very important to ensure that you have people understand things and do things. We know, through our knowledge management assessment at the time, that institutions would contract knowledge management consultants. They would develop the knowledge management strategy, pay thousands of dollars, but it doesn't go anywhere. So the model that we introduced, the Knowledge Management for Agriculture Development Challenge, build the capacity of the person who is the focal person of the institution, and then he uses the skill, or she uses the skill, the knowledge acquired, to develop the strategy for his institution under the mentorship of all these global KM practitioners that I'm talking about. So it creates ownership, because this is co-created. And so many of them at the moment, a number of countries, I think over almost 30 African countries now, have their national knowledge management strategies developed through the National Research Institute. And so we have been able to build a critical mass of knowledge management practitioners, not just because we've developed their capacity, but because they are working with similar ideologies, similar approaches. And so the cohesion, the measurement of KM, for me, I always think that if we're able to continue to support these people to implement their KM strategies, in 10 years, anyone who wants to measure the impact, or at periodic measurement, anyone who wants to measure the efforts, the system, the approach would look similar, and it will be very easy to do that. So for us, that's very refreshing, and we think that alone sets a very strong foundation for the uptake of knowledge management in the continent. Yeah.
I hear from many of your colleagues that it is very difficult to do knowledge management in Africa because there are so many languages, tribal languages, and also many religions. So what would be your tip for a European to understand how to deal with this environment?
Yeah, that is really very, very interesting, and that's one of the key challenges of any knowledge management worker in Africa. Now, I would want to take this from the FARA level. At the FARA level, I mean, as a continental institution, we work with the African Union. Mm-hmm. So the African Union has ratified 5 languages for the continent. So we have English, French, Portuguese, Swahili, and Arabic. These are the 5 key languages that have been ratified by the African Union. So we are bound to. But even at our level, it's not every content that we can translate into all these languages. So we pay attention to the most popular ones, English and French. So that is already a limitation. Now, for each country, and let me use Ghana for instance. Ghana has over 40 languages.
40?
Yeah, 40 languages. Yes. Even though there are a few dominant ones, but there are 40 languages. A country like Cameroon, I'm told Cameroon has over 100 languages. Wow. And they have them in bits. They don't have but for countries like Nigeria, maybe they have a lot of languages, but they are prominent ones that you know that these are the biggest ones that when you're able to support, translate, then it can trickle down. So it's been one of the most difficult things to deal with, the diversity, not just about the language, but the cultural diversity. You move from West Africa to Central Africa and things are different. You move to East Africa is different, to South Africa is different. Even within Ghana, you move from North to South and things are different. So those dynamics are something that we continue to reflect on. And that is why for me, the Knowledge Management for Agricultural Development Challenge is an important tool, because every year we discover new people, they come up with new perspectives of things, they identify new challenges. And so last year's batch, for instance, they brought out the issue of indigenous knowledge as something that is very important. Now, so we have a paper that is coming out on indigenous knowledge, which one of the teams developed, and that marked the beginning of knowledge managers' discussion on the role of indigenous knowledge. You cannot talk about indigenous knowledge without talking about the diversity, the cultural, the language. Yes. Definitely those things, most of the indigenous knowledge emerge from those, those angles. And so they are tied together. So for me, the KM for AgD initiative, if we are able to continue to expand it, we can unpack most of these things. What we do at FARA is that because we work from the continental to the regional so if we work with our sub-regional partners, when we identify some things, we develop some knowledge product, at least at the sub-regional level, they also have languages that they focus on, that they can scale. Then at the country level, the country will focus on the languages that they are most popular, that they can translate some of the knowledge products into. And NGOs, at the local NGOs, when they get little resources, they can also replicate the translation into the more localized language. So it's a complex environment, but it is not a strange environment. We know the issues, the challenges. It's just that we cannot address all of them at one time. We have to do it gradually and consistently.
Wow, I'm thinking about what Obina was talking about as well, that he's working for people to get access to water, or what Paul was saying, that he really would like to have farmers to share their land with the young farmers. What is practically that you wish to change through your work in Africa?
Thank you. And it's nice to hear that you spoke with Obina. Obina is a friend also with the water,
He's
the
fantastic.
water institution. Yes, I think for me, there's the need for the connection, networking. There's the need for a strengthened connection, networking, collaboration among African countries, African knowledge workers. The only way, because of the level of diversity, the challenges with digitalization, where a lot of content are scattered all over the place, the fact that a lot of our content is still not available online, and there's no much coordination in the way we bring out those local knowledge. Everybody is doing something from one point or the other. So the ability for us to work in a similar approach can only be enhanced if there's a connection, facial connection among knowledge workers or among stakeholders within the industry. So for me, I want to see an Africa that is very well connected among themselves, sharing knowledge without boundaries, being open, and engaging as much as possible. Actually, that is one of the bases why we have the knowledge management community of practice. The diverse. So most of the time, we try to, the fact that people come from different angles, they have different backgrounds. And for instance, if a Nigerian tells you I'm from a village,
yes,
you would get there and you realize that village is a town in Ghana. Like what they call a village in Ghana, we see it as a town. So the person's perspective, if he connects and start engaging somebody like me, who, if I say I'm from a village, you get there and they have like 2 or 3 houses actually situated in that, or one family, you would appreciate some of the dynamics and how people do the things or why people do the things the way they do them. So connecting people, and that is what we need in Africa. And I hope that we can use this vehicle of the KM4ACD. We can use knowledge management, just generally knowledge management as a vehicle for connecting. I think without knowledge management, even the connection that we created with the Knowledge for Development Partnership that resulted in us getting support from almost all these knowledge management workers globally wouldn't have. But as they share their experiences, we contextualize their experience within the African context. And that's why we don't want to lose sight of the fact that whilst we collaborate with the world, we also need to connect among ourselves so that even our diversity can become our strength. And that is what I really want to see.
I love this notion. When I interviewed Thomas, he was talking about this knowledge without borders as well. And in Europe, it is coming up as a very strong need for knowledge to be the fifth freedom, where you can share everything freely with each other. And it should be a human right to access the knowledge of other people and use it for the greater good. Yeah. You have been helping children, and Paul was mentioning that you are a mentor to him, like he really looks up to you as well. What do you want to achieve for the future generations?
All right. Thank you. So for first, with somebody from the village or who grew up from the village and still very well connected with the village, I want to see how the local knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, become recognized in a way that is not hindered by the typical or core research ideologies. In FARA, for instance, we have one of our publication mechanisms that we say we are not focused on a fully peer-reviewed journal. We are looking at a verified knowledge that you can verify. So once it is packaged, there should be some standards that allow it to be published in a way that can advance knowledge. So that is one aspect that I think is very important, being able to get the indigenous knowledge, the local knowledge, being formalized just as research. I mean, the typical research is. The second part for me is what I mentioned earlier. I want to see the knowledge, people being able to, like people having the opportunity to share knowledge, but sharing it or sharing and learning within context of or guided by knowledge management principles. And that can only be achieved when you have the capacities of the knowledge workers being built in a way that they think similar, or let's say their ideas can be coordinated and they are working in cohesion. In knowledge management, we've realized, and I've always told the team whenever we have the training, that until you open up, you wouldn't know that you have been struggling with something for a year, which somebody uses 1 minute to do it. So once you open up, you would realize that the things you cannot do, somebody is doing it very well. So you just need to learn from the person. The vice versa, you would also have knowledge that somebody will learn from you and do it better. And that already is helping people to work faster, to solve problems easily, and to continue to connect. I want to see that passion of these people that we are building their capacities. The passion, we want to see their passion for knowledge management go beyond the fact that they are paid for it or they are paid by an institution. We want to see the passion to come up more from their inner selves, so that they will continue to advance the course of knowledge management, even when they are not working for an organization. Because knowledge management is one of those portfolios that I always say that if an organization closes down today, knowledge management can stay on for 10 years, utilizing things that have been happening in the organization to continue to promote the organization as if it still exists. And those are the things that, for me, I think that if that happens, I would really be very happy.
As a knowledge manager, we are always learning and we are always doing new things and pioneering stuff. What are the things that you would like to learn going forward?
Okay, thank you. So this is a very interesting question, and for me, I almost every day I try to read something new. Maybe I just go onto the site, look for knowledge management, or I just find something to read. And so I think that with the pace of technological advancement, the introduction of AI, and the drive for digitalization, which even in Africa, every government is now trying to introduce digitalization, and the African Union have even tried to develop a digitalization framework for Africa. I think that being able to have more capacity to get some of these things, to understand some of these things, even from the perspective of other jurisdictions, and trying to help the African continent in that direction is very important. We know AI is very good, but it is also good for people who already know, or people who have some knowledge. So if you don't have knowledge, or you don't have some specific knowledge, your use of AI will be limited, because it is supposed to enhance the way you think, not to think for you.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think that being able to understand these things, the AI, the issue of digitalization, for me, it's really something that I would look forward to.
You are giving me so many food for thought. I wanted to circle back because this just got stuck in me in the beginning from our interview, that you were talking about a powerful story when you worked as a sponsor for children policies. What was that powerful story that got you the award?
Okay, thank you. So, as I said, I was managing 3,000 children in sponsorship, and for every year, we were supposed to produce one a Christian, a Christmas card for them to send to their sponsors. Then every year within the same year, we're supposed to produce the annual report of the children to their sponsors so that they know how they are faring.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, we were expected to produce the most significant change stories from the kids. And so once you are working with them throughout the year, you are taking note of the progress that they are making and so on and so forth. So for almost every year, we had to produce each every 6 months, you have to produce something that has changed the lives of kids. Now we had this community called Konkomada.
Mm-hmm.
They had their school building was very dilapidated. Many kids were traveling from different distances to the school. Sometimes they have to cross some streams, and so those challenges were there. But you can imagine, even after walking long distance or after crossing a stream to school, you still get to the school, and the building is, when it's raining, you have to find place to. So myself and my manager at the time, I think Mr. Godfrey Yelewere, a very, very honest and hardworking man, there was a proposal written, and then through the kids, the World Vision system, the sponsors, sometimes if you identify a major problem of a community, you can use the children, the things they go through as the basis. And then so it was one of those stories that we wrote to the sponsor, describing the condition of the school, the community. But the good thing is that the community were also committed to the cause of that, but they didn't have the resources. And that is how we got a family who were touched by the story in Korea, and then they made funds available for the construction of the Konkomada school. Wow. And so that was how one of those stories that I captured that I think made some good impact at the time. There are a lot of similar stories like that, but that one, they were a bit more dynamics that made it look slightly, a bit different. So, and for me, I've always said that the time of my career that I've always been so happy about is when I was a sponsorship officer with World Vision International. Yes. It comes with so much passion and love for children. It gives you the room to connect with the children in a manner that makes them want to always be closer to you. So you can imagine, anytime I'm getting to their school on my motorbike, it was always like a very fun moment. So those moments were actually my best time in my profession. I think so. So I will always have fun memories, and I have so many stories about it. Including just yesterday, I had a PhD scholarship that was sent to me to share within the FARA network. And I didn't mention that currently, FARA, I also coordinate a community of practice for AR, for the Agricultural Research for Development stakeholders in Africa. We have about 40,000 stakeholders in our community of practice, which I coordinate. So they shared it, and then it trickled on me that the PhD program is being it's a sponsorship from one of these renowned environmentalists called Tony Renaud. He's from Australia, and he came up with a model called the farmer managed natural regeneration. Is this approach of pruning shrubs to become trees. And so I remember that we did some writings about that program with him in 2014. So when he shared, I just looked into my documents and I realized I still had a copy of it. We did it with one of my colleagues, Frances Enu, and then I flagged it with her and I said, yeah, we did this work in 2014. Now you're doing a PhD about it. So I'm excited to be the one sharing the opportunity for people to apply. And so those are some of those fun moments that you just realize that, yes, you've made some impact in the lives of people.
Yeah, you do something and it will have an impact. It can have an impact globally, like this Korean family helping an African and African people helping other people around the globe. Yeah, I can understand your passion about it. So do you still use storytelling elements in your knowledge management work?
I think people say I'm a storyteller, but personally, I don't see it that much. I wish I could do it better, but that is what some of my close people tell me, that I do a lot of storytelling, because I always believe that it is only out of sharing of your experience or what you know, what you've gone through in an open and frank manner. That is where you build trust, and you also get people sharing with you. So storytelling is a very powerful tool, and any opportunity I get, I try to have a story to say. And I have thousands or maybe millions of stories in my head on different topics, depending on what comes up.
Honestly, I would love capturing them all, I wanted to ask you about anything that you would like to share with the audience, but I didn't ask about.
Okay, so I think this is a very important engagement and very interesting engagement, and being able to speak passionately, frankly, and share your stories is something that I love to do. I think that one of the things that we need, especially in African projects, is to give knowledge managers the opportunity to participate in baseline and in endline activities, maybe midpoint activities. Now, having been a project manager myself, what I realized missing is when the project is coming to an end, then you see people now looking for impact stories. They are looking for change stories. Unfortunately, there may not be enough information about how it started, apart from the M&E indicators. So even as we advocate for knowledge management, one of the things that I would want to call on African managers, African leaders, is to incorporate knowledge management as a need, so that at the beginning of the project, there's a close working relationship between M&E and knowledge management. Whilst M&E is focusing on the data, the indicators, knowledge management is also focusing on the information, the qualitative information behind the numbers at the beginning, so that at the end of the project or in the midpoint, when you are writing another story, it becomes easy to link it to what you already started. And for me, I believe that even donors would love to look at it from that angle, rather than to start fishing for impact stories when the project is coming to an end, rather than working with the team at the beginning. So that is what I would really love to appeal to project managers, project leaders, institutional leaders, governments, and all that they should pay attention to that. And I think that is something that is worth considering. And that's what I would, maybe you didn't ask, but I believe that is something that is very important.
I can tell you that I fully agree with you. I think that it is too late to capture what has happened in a project in the end. We need to have a before action review, after action review, and we need to talk and capture all the knowledge in the format of stories. I saw so many lessons learned exercises that are Excel sheets after Excel sheets. Just no one wants to open them.
Exactly.
So I'm not saying they are not important, but I'm just saying that our attention span cannot just look through data and data and data. We need to have people who talk about their experience.
Exactly.
And this Friday afternoon with you was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for the dynamic conversation.